We begin the movie with Chris Vaughn, a former sergeant of the United States Army Special Forces, who, after 8 years of service, decided to return to his hometown to reunite with his loved ones. Upon arriving in the city, the first thing he sees is a mother buying illegal substances in an alley. The old factory where his father used to work has closed for unknown reasons. While he was reading the note, the sheriff approaches to ask him if he has any problem. Chris takes the opportunity to ask him about the sawmill, to which the sheriff tells him that it closed 3 years ago. If he is looking for some way to earn money, he should go to the casino and try his luck at the roulette. Seeing his name on his bag, the officer remembers him and says he knows his story. He was a friend of his parents. He asks his partner to get out of the vehicle and tells him that Chris is a great soldier. They should greet him properly. The sheriff offers to take him to his parents' house, but Chris says it is not necessary. Due to his insistence, our protagonist ends up accepting. In the middle of the road, Vaughn asks him about the previous officer, to which he tells him that he died in a car accident about 5 months ago. He fell asleep while driving and crashed into a tree. The car was folded like an accordion. He was a good man. He did his job very well as a sheriff. Since new elections are approaching, Stand gives him a ballot to vote in his favor. As he approaches his parents' house, his family welcomes him, and they decide to order food to tell him what happened in town. Vaughn had planned to work at the sawmill, but saw that it was closed. His father has a furniture business. His mother is the substitute teacher, and his sister helps her occasionally. Just at that moment, his nephew appears upset because he will have to sleep on the couch to give him his room. Pete says he will set up a tent to sleep in the yard. Vaughn tells him that he will help him put up the tent. If he does it incorrectly, it could fill with water. Mockingly, Pete replies that there are no signs of rain. At nightfall, Pete returns completely soaked due to the storm. Chris tells him that he will sleep on the floor. He will leave the bed for him to rest peacefully. His nephew refuses and asks him if he ever killed a person. As expected, Chris does not answer anything. The next morning, one of his childhood friends decides to visit him to greet him. Ray tells him that when he left the city, he got a guitar and dedicated his life to music. Everything was going relatively well until he got into the world of flower. Shortly after he only dedicated his life to illicit substances, he ended up being arrested and was sentenced to 2 years in prison for robbery. He has been 14 months without using any substance. Now he is dedicated to architecture. Recently, he was talking with his group of friends. He told them that he had returned to the city. They asked him to invite him to play a football game. Later, we see his friends welcoming him with the army salute. They tell him that after Jay's parents left him the sawmill, the first thing he did was close it. Just at that moment, Jay appears, telling them that he decided to close the sawmill to be able to open his casino. They share anecdotes from their past and start playing the game. A couple of minutes later, his nephew shows up and sees that one of his teammates offers him a cigarette of green leaves. Pete notices that his uncle is watching him and decides to reject the cigarette. When playing the first minutes of the game, both teams separate to form their new strategies. Hamilton asks one of his teammates to hit Chris in the left knee. They must win at all costs, no matter what they have to do. When resuming the game, Booth launches himself against his knee to injure him. As a consequence of this tackle and another unsportsmanlike act, Hamilton's team ends up victorious. Booth apologizes and Chris gets up with his leg sore, telling him that it is no problem. While Vaughn was bandaging his knee, Hamilton approaches and asks him if he received the tackle in his injured leg. It turns out that Chris had injured his leg a couple of years ago. His rival used that information in order to win the game. Before leaving, he offers to visit his casino to introduce him to some girls and have a couple of drinks. Since he still has nothing to do in town, our protagonist ends up accepting. Then his nephew approaches to encourage him in his next game. Chris advises him not to hang out with those guys in the stands. Those substances will only lead him to ruin. Without saying anything, Pete leaves on his motorcycle. At nightfall, the group of friends head to the casino. One of the guards asks them to follow him and takes them to Hamilton's office. He welcomes them and tells them that he will invite them to a couple of drinks if they need credit or female company. They just have to ask him. After having a couple of drinks, his friends take him to a private strip show room. At first, our protagonist was having a good time, until he sees the girl's face and realizes that she is an acquaintance. Upon leaving the room, he sees Booth trafficking illegal substances. He tries to forget what happened and joins his friends again. In one of the games where his friend was playing, he notices that the dealer has a rigged dice. To expose him in front of everyone, Chris decides to bet all his money on the rigged number. The dealer refuses, telling him it is not his turn. So Vaughn grabs the dice and rolls them himself, landing on 7 again. The dealer mentions that it was not a valid bet, as he is drawing attention. The guards try to restrain him from behind. The ex-sergeant fights back against them and starts causing a disturbance. After knocking out several guards, a guy shows up with a gun trying to neutralize him. The veteran manages to block him, but one of the guards takes advantage to tase him. The armed man hits him on the head and leaves him unconscious. Once awake, he appears in a room surrounded by Jay's friends. Booth sees his medallion and realizes he was part of the special forces. He tries to take it off, but the ex-sergeant grabs him by the neck. The others stop him and start cutting him with a knife until leaving him dying. In the next scene, we see him on a bridge while a trucker stops to help him. The next morning, his family is informed that their son has very serious injuries all over his body. Whoever was responsible believed he had died. A less strong man would not have survived. The sheriff interrupts them and tells the doctor he needs his statement. He also needs a copy of the toxicology analysis. Michelle mentions that instead of asking for that data, he should arrest the person who tried to kill her brother. Stan replies that he is only doing his job. He understands her situation. But they still do not know the one responsible who started the whole altercation. A couple of hours later, Ray shows up at the hospital to see the condition of his friend, who, thanks to his training, seems to improve outstandingly. Ray tells him he must be careful. Things in the city are not like before anymore. Some indefinite time later, Chris is discharged. Most of the time, our protagonist spends on the couch until he gets better to resume the exercises. One day, while he was lowering some planks, Hamilton shows up to thank him for discovering his employee. He fired him, and they took away his permit to work again in another casino. He has no idea why his security cameras did not capture him. Chris tells him there are many things that are not detected in his business. Hamilton tries to defend his guards. They always have to deal with guys who do not respect order. Anyway, they were already warned. They said he lost control. Maybe he suffered from post-traumatic stress. Vaughn tells him he does not understand what he is talking about, to which Jay reminds him he destroyed his casino. It was not easy to convince his men not to report him. If he had a problem, he should have talked to him. He offers him an important position in his business, and Chris ends up rejecting it. Jay gives him some money and Chris rejects it again. Later, we see the veteran arriving at the police station to try to report his attempted murder. The sheriff receives him and tells him that the casino incident is a finished matter. He was lucky they did not file charges against him. The casino people did an internal investigation. The casino is like a no-fly zone. Since the sawmill closed, the casino is the main source of income in the town. They cannot do anything. His case was already closed. Vaughn yells at him that he will keep fighting. The sheriff approaches and tells him he should be grateful for being alive. The place where he is his town. Nobody will tell him how he should do things. He is the one who gives the orders. Now he must leave his building. When returning home, the girl from the casino shows up to return the jacket he forgot in the room. Vaughn tells her they must talk about something important. While they walk through the house, Chris tells her he tried to talk to the sheriff, but he did not behave as such. He asks her about the casino, and Denny tells him she has been working for Hamilton for almost a year. They were in a relationship that only lasted a couple of days. It was a long time ago. That same afternoon, his mother receives a call from the police informing her that Pete had an overdose. Both head to the location, and Michelle tells them everything will be fine. Pete apologizes, mentioning he had never done it. His friends tell them they forced him to do it. Chris approaches intimidatingly and asks them the name of the person who sold them the substances. The boy answers that the security guys from the casino gave them to him. With this information, Chris returns home in search of his grandfather's shotgun. He heads to the casino and at the last moment decides to leave the shotgun in the car. He grabs a wooden plank and breaks a casino machine. The guards show up armed and the ex-sergeant knocks them out one by one. Burke shows up armed and the veteran breaks his arm with the plank. Booth joins the fight with a shotgun, but our protagonist neutralizes him with a couple of punches. After recovering his medallion, he throws the plank against the window of Hamilton's office. Enraged by what happened, his partner declares war on him. As he gets into his vehicle, the authority tries to stop him. Chris stops and lets himself be arrested. Because of his actions, our protagonist is forced to go to trial, with all the statements against him. Chris decides to fire his lawyer and present his case on his own. He tells the jury that the police station and the casino are full of corruption. The police do nothing against the guys who sell substances to the kids. He has many reasons for what he did. If they acquit him of these charges, he will run for sheriff. If they elect him, he will fix the town. He shows them the wounds they gave him in the casino and tells them he will not let it happen again. As a consequence of his presentation of the facts, the jury declares him innocent. Sometime later, we see our protagonist modifying his vehicle. As it turns out, now he is the new representative of the town's security. On his first day as sheriff, the first thing he does is fire all the corrupt ones who work in the station. Patrolling the area, the veteran crosses paths with the mobster and decides to stop him to ask for the vehicle documents, indirectly threatening him. Jay tells him he must be careful. If he keeps doing what he does, he will not even make it to 40 years old. The sheriff gives him the documents and tells him he must fix his rear lights. Next time, he will not give him another warning. As expected, Chris breaks the lights with the wooden plank. In order to help his friend, our protagonist gets him a position in the police as commissioner. Surprised by the surprise, Ray tells him he cannot accept it. In his past, he committed crimes for which he was in prison. Chris responds that he does not care. He has influence, so he can make amends for his mistakes. He really needs his help. He wants to know the world of illegal substances in order to dismantle it. Ray explains that the dealers are clean 99% of the time. They must track the money starting with their consumers. That will lead them to their targets. They must be careful. They are altered all the time. When they get them, they will have to pressure them to get information. They do so and manage to hold one of the mobsters. They start searching him and find a little flower. To get revenge, Chris decides to destroy his vehicle with the excuse of searching for substances as an investigation procedure. After destroying his vehicle almost entirely, the sheriff sets out to torture the trafficker. Booth decides to tell them some information. There are many people involved in the business. At any moment, someone will get hurt. Knowing that his family's life could be in danger, our protagonist decides to leave the shotgun to his father. He returns to the station and asks his friend to take care of his parents. Tonight, he will stay at the station. A couple of hours later, Denny appears at the station to bring him food. She tells him she quit the casino. From now on, she wants to start a new life. Chris grabs her arm and gives her a passionate kiss. The next morning, we see Hamilton making a call to his partner. Later, Chris's truck is destroyed with an explosive. He grabs his shotgun, and as he approaches the door, the corrupt ex-cops start shooting at him with machine guns and rifles. Meanwhile, at his parents' house, Ray wakes up to the smell of something burning. He decides to go to the kitchen, and Burke was about to kill him, but Pete manages to divert the trajectory of the shot and then hits him with a frying pan. Ray tries to apply a lock on him and yells at Pete to leave. After struggling for a while, the commissioner manages to knock out the mobster. Back at the station, Chris uses the shotgun to open a hole in the ground. He asks his girl to try to escape and returns to tell Booth that he will try to get him out alive. First, he must tell him the location of the flower laboratory, with no other choice. The trafficker tells him that the laboratory is hidden in the sawmill. Vaughn opens the cell, and the guy stands up, receiving a shot in the back. Returning with the commissioner, he grabs his shotgun and surprises a guy from behind. This one tries to attack him, so Ray is forced to shoot him. In another part of the house, the family was being held by another mobster. When the man looks away because of the noises, Michelle takes advantage to push him down the stairs. Ray takes cover, and they start shooting at each other until they empty their ammunition. When one of the thugs was about to throw an explosive, Chris shoots him positioned at the bottom of the station. He dodges the shots and takes down his second target. Stan loses control and starts yelling like crazy while shooting at the ground. Denny manages to distract him, and our protagonist shoots him point blank. Having neutralized all the corrupt ex-cops, Chris returns home and finds his partner beating the mobster. While he was checking his wounds, Burke gets up enraged by what happened. Suddenly, his father ends up saving their lives. Determined to put an end to organized crime once and for all, our protagonist drives until he reaches the sawmill. He advances stealthily and finds the flour laboratory. Upon finding his target, Hamilton reminds him of part of his childhood. They used to play hide and seek in the sawmill. Chris yells at him furiously, and he activates a trapdoor to try to kill him, while yelling at him for ruining his business. Hamilton hits him with a tool. Chris manages to grab the tool, causing them both to fall all the way down. Being thrown out of the sawmill, the sheriff goes into the forest to set the bone in his leg back into position. Jay comes back with an axe and they both fall down a hill. Using a log, our protagonist manages to block his attacks until cornering him against a tree. He gives him several blows to the face and the mobster spits his blood at him. Chris gives him one last blow and tells him that from now on he will be under arrest. In the last scene, we see the sheriff shutting down the casino along with his partner. Knowing a bit about the story on which the movie was based, Buford was an American sheriff known for his fight against organized crime in the 1960s. Buford began an intense campaign against illegal gambling, prostitution, drug trafficking, or criminal activities in his county. During his mandate, he faced violent opposition from the local criminal elements. Before the year 1967 arrived, he had been shot 3 times in separate confrontations and had killed several hitmen who were hired by the Mafia to kill him. They tried to charge him for the murders, but there was never enough evidence against him to prove it. In August of that year, Buford was ambushed and his car was riddled with bullets. Despite being seriously injured, he survived the attack, which made him a local and national hero. Buford continued his fight against corruption and organized crime, but in 1974, he died in a car accident under controversial circumstances that some speculate could have been a murder.